I wanted to just talk a little bit about some behavior that I feel like is a little harmful to our community and our world that has sprung up from a lot of what we're dealing with right now with our global pandemic. And that would be the demonization of quote unquote negative emotions. I've actually noticed it myself in two Facebook groups that I'm on Facebook, and then I've seen it on Instagram as well. And Facebook and Instagram are really the only two social media platforms that I utilize. And I'm assuming it might be happening on other places as well. But basically, telling people that when they have fear or when they have anger or any emotion that is deemed lower or non spiritual or egoic, that they're wrong, that they're sheep, that they're not awake or they're not woke. And I just find that this labeling and this judgment of these emotions is very harmful. And here's why. Having emotions is probably one of the most important hallmarks of being a human being. Yeah, we have intellect and this, that, and the third, but our emotions are really what give us our humanity and what separate us from other beings like plants and animals, who there is some research that animals do experience emotion. It might even be on plants, I don't know, I haven't looked. But that as humans, we can make concrete decisions based on those emotions, whether they be good or bad or ugly, indifferent, whatever. But the talking down to people and telling them that they're not spiritual because they're angry, or they're not spiritual because they're sad or they're fearful or they're disappointed or they doubt themselves. For those that seek to expand, the conscious community, how do you expect to get people to believe your beliefs if you're going to criticize them for something that's very, very, very human and natural? On the contrary, I actually feel that really feeling one's emotions, especially the really deep and dark ones, are what make us our most authentic, spiritual, human selves. I mean, we wouldn't be able to be on the planet without our emotions. From the beginning of time, our emotions are what have kept us safe, what has helped us innovate, what has helped us to help others. If we don't have feelings, we can't do anything other than be robots. And so it's really sad to me and disappointing to see that so many in the spiritual community want to demonize how people are feeling, especially in a time such as this when people need to know that what they're feeling is okay. You can have your emotions. You need to feel your emotions. Otherwise, you spiritually bypass. And that's when the ego is in full force, is when we spiritually bypass, because all of a sudden we believe that we're the authority. And really, nobody is. We can claim to have all of these talks with God, or believe that God has given us a word, and that's fine. But the minute we use that and to put ourselves over people or think that we're better than people, that is when you're actually way on the other end, and it has nothing to do with God. I was raised Christian, and so one of the stories that I can think of from the Bible, just because that's my context, is in the New Testament after Jesus had returned when he was an adult, I believe. And if I'm wrong, forgive me. However, the story is going to be true. But basically, Jesus went to the temple or his father's house, and people were gambling. People were dealing with fraud and dishonesty, and Jesus was so angry that he flipped over tables. And now I think we forget that. So it was Jesus at that moment, not spiritual, not the Son of God, not the this example of unconditional love, just because he got angry in that moment. And I don't even think that he sinned, right? And I mean, according to the Bible, he was perfect, so he didn't sin, right? At least in the context that the Christians believe. No, if anything, he showed, the root of that anger, right, was his unconditional love. he had so much love for the message that he was here to bring, that his father's house should be a place only of that, a place only of love, that people could come in for help, for support, for guidance, for prayer, for whatever it was. That, but should somebody come in and need one of those things and see gambling, right, that would turn them away. It would turn me away. If I were to go somewhere though I thought I was going to get some legitimate help that I need, and I see gambling going on, I don't think that I would think that would be a place for me to go to get the help that I needed. And I am not Jesus by any shape of the imagination, right? But I can imagine, put myself in that situation, have empathy and compassion for what Jesus was feeling in that moment, that he was angry that people were defiling his father's house because that was not its purpose, right? And in that moment, I would say he was more holy than anybody there, because he acted on behalf of that anger that he felt for the betterment of his message. And so what's important is that when we have these deep, these dark emotions, they're messages. All of our emotions are messages. What we do from that place of acknowledging what we're feeling then determines whether we are acting in the light or acting in the shadow. So when you are angry, do you then take that anger out on others, or do you become destructive, right? Or do you do something constructive with that emotion? Do you realize the message that your anger with your children, for example, is because you were afraid for their safety because of something they did? Your anger at somebody feeling fear, right? Are you angry with them because you are also fearful yourself and they're reflecting that back to you? And so I just think that we need to be really careful about how we are interacting with and supporting each other throughout this time. Now is not a time for further separation, whether that be by the spiritual community or not, but a time of coming together. If anything that we can think about that we've been taught thus far is that connection is the way to go for this, not further disconnection. And yes, we are physically separated, but we are connecting through the beautiful mediums of our social media and the internet and phone calls and FaceTime. And so I just really want to see that stop, because anger, especially fear, doubt, those are not emotions of the ego. I actually venture to say they're actually the opposite, and show us where we need to pour some more love and light in, either for ourselves or help others to do it, and do it with and for them. So those are just my thoughts on some of the trends that I've been seeing around just basically some of the ideas floating around social media. So that's all. What do you think?